yourself a break. Here you'll find some love, music, laughter, and above all, she'll dare to tell the truth. And so come to Granny's place and give your spirit a big boost.
Welcome to Granny's Place, a haven for love, entertainment, and uncommon sense. I'm Sweet Baby James, and I'm here to introduce you to Granny Rocks, and also to tonight's theme, which is, has America chosen force over connection? And what our political environment says about us. Are we a nation that elevates people who admire dictators, look like tough guys, and are verbally or physically abusive to those less powerful?
Nah, we don't do that.
And what does this say about us?
Us?
Can't be accidental that such people are showing up more and more in our public arenas. Some will dismiss them, and some will adore them. But ultimately, these individuals are not the point. We are. Oh no, not us. Yep. In this week's Granny's Place, Granny Rocks will help us look at ourselves and our society to decipher why we are elevating people who use power to control others, and to ask if this is who we want to be or think we have to be. So let's explore these questions with Granny, shall we? And so now, here's Granny!
Hello, welcome everybody. Are you dreading this show or are you raring to go? That's what I want to know. Am I forcing this on you or are you doing this willingly?
So Granny, what do you mean by force?
Well, I just got a definition of force like 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
It is the use of power against resistance.
Mm.
Don't you love that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know if that's the real definition of force, but you know, when you're here, we're talking about the way things are, not some kind of theoretical, you know, make it perfect kind of thing, and I think that's what it is. So, you know, it's like, all right, you know, what is force? You're trying to get the furniture through the door, right? And it just doesn't fit, right? And you push and you push and you push, right? Have you ever done that?
Yeah.
Right? And then what happens is something gets destroyed, right? And you know, either the furniture gets messed up or the door gets messed up. That's force, right? You're using power against resistance. Now, if you were using your head, did I say that? You would see if there's some way to like take the molding or whatever that stuff is, what you call it, on the door, right? Take off the trim.
The trim,
right?
Okay.
And see if you can get it through. Or you might even have measured first and you discovered that it wasn't going to work, or you find another way to turn it. But no, we have to use force because we're so annoyed that the universe is not meeting our expectations. So that's what I mean by force.
And can you have force without resistance? Like you just
You don't need force without
resistance? You don't need
resistance.
force without.
In fact, you're talking about that.
Yeah.
Supposing you're putting your fingers through whipped cream. I mean, how much force does that take, right?
Not much.
Because there isn't much resistance. Now, you could say that there may be some use of force, which is the force of gravity. I mean, there's some resistance. The whipped cream,
Well,
you know,
what
has
about
some.
a bully who bullies somebody who's just very passive and not resistant?
Well, then they don't need to use force, but there's.
But there's a certain
There's-
kind of
well, there's
what
the
other
threat
kinds
of
of force are we talking about?
Well, force. There is physical force, obviously, which I was just discussing. Then there's mental force, right? I have the power of my superior intellect against you. You can't articulate. You're at a loss for words. You don't speak the language. You get flustered, whatever it is, and I can just like talk up a storm. And I'm using force against you. It is the force of my mind, of my articulation, whatever it is, to overcome your resistance because I'm not trying to engage you, right? See, that's the opposite of force is when you collaborate, when you engage, right?
What about covert force?
Well, before we talk about that, let me
Okay.
talk a little bit about others, you know, about whether we need force.
Okay.
And because I think that's important. And so, yes, for example, you've got a nut. You want to get to the nut, but you've got the shell, right? And what are you
Yeah.
going to do? You got to use force,
You
don't
gotta
you?
use force.
If you have a nut, you get a nutcracker, right?
Right.
And that is the use of force,
Yeah.
right? That's force against resistance also. So that's cool. Now, if you have a child that's running into the fireplace, you just pick it up. You don't have a conversation. You just grab it because you know that it's not going to cooperate. Now, the nut has absolutely no desire to open up to us. Although maybe on some spiritual level it's going to, match its destiny by doing that, right? But anyway, so, there's the baby. There's no time for conversation. You just grab it. Now that's force against the inertia of the baby running over to the fireplace, right?
Yeah.
So those are the appropriate uses of force. As the child gets older, you try to have conversations, right? You want to enlist the cooperation. So I just wanted to make clear that there is an appropriate use of force. I mean, everything in the universe has its place. It's just there are some things we overuse, and there are so many different forms of force that we coerce other people to do what we want them to do. So let's go back to what you were asking before. So there is physical force, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is the power of the mind. There's social force.
Social.
Very important. All my friends are doing it. So I feel forced by my desire to be loved by everybody or be popular to do something. And that's an internal thing, right? But it's still force because there's some resistance in me. It's like, okay, I'm at the lynch mob and I'm looking around and I'm saying, do I really want to do this? Is this really what I want to be doing? Well, I don't want anyone to think that I'm a wuss, or that I'm not protecting the virginity of all white women, or whatever it is that I think I'm doing. And the force, that social force, can actually get me to do things that I would not normally do, right? So that's another form of force. The psychological force, right? Where you just play on someone's guilt. Oh, you wouldn't want to do that, would you? No. And see, it doesn't look like force. It looks like cajoling or reason. But it's, again, overcoming resistance. See, like we're overcoming our resistance to being violent when we get people engaged in a mob scene kind of thing. So there's so many different kinds of force. And think about that. It is all power against resistance.
Is there such a thing as financial force?
Oh my God, is there ever? Financial force? Most of us feel it every day. Have you read that the rich are getting richer? Not that we didn't know this, but the millionaires are getting richer at a faster and faster pace. They're getting more and 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 more. So you say, well, what's wrong with that? It trickles down. I got a $5 an hour raise. They got a $20 million a minute raise. I mean, is that a problem? We're still improving our status. We are getting richer every day. The gulf gets bigger. Now, what's the problem with the gulf getting bigger? Well, it's very hard to make it when you're at the bottom. Thank God we are not at the bottom, but we sure are not at the top. So we know all about that, don't we? But it's also, as the rich get richer, they get more financial power against us. So the rich buy elections. I heard recently that the Koch brothers are going out there. You know who the Koch brothers are?
They're billionaires, multi-billionaires. Yeah.
All involved in the oil industry, So what they're doing is they are going into communities where there are, people are looking at public transit and all of that. And amazingly enough, what they're doing is trying to scare tactics to get people scared of what it's going to do to them to have public transportation. So terrible.
On the cheap, no less.
Oh, terrible. So that is See, and then of course there's obviously financial force of like, you got to work for me, especially if you're in a company town, right? You got to work for the only guy in town. If you're in a company world, you know, that's the way it is. You've got a choice of going. Fantastic. There was an article today. A lot of good stuff comes in the news if you read it, if you want to read it and you want to know, but who wants to know? You know, about all the toxins, and so many of them are in workplaces. You know, nail salons cause cancer, right?
Whoa.
People are still using asbestos, formaldehyde, silicone or silica, whatever that stuff is. That's the, out in the at the beach.
At the
that
beach?
sand stuff.
Oh.
Anyway, there are chemicals, terrible chemicals.
Silt?
No,
No,
it's
okay.
actually it's sand.
Sand.
But
okay.
anyway, that things get into people's lungs. Coal, you know.
Black lung.
Okay, but using financial force. Oh, you're going to get a good job. You're going to get a good job. You're going to get a good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. All you have to do is get cancer. I mean, that's not a problem, is it? I mean, you don't care about having cancer.
And
so
die
that-
young.
And die young, so that I can be a millionaire and make $200 million a day. And, you know, I mean, that is, so you see what I'm saying. So the more power some people have, the more they can use it against the rest of us, eh?
It's true.
So those
You
are
see that.
all forms of force, which make us give up our resistance to being hurt and exploited. And I mean, obviously the fist, a parent's fist against the child, or against the woman, or the bullies against the kids.
What about subtle forms of force, like covert?
Oh my God, don't even get me going on that topic. I mean, these are the biggest problems because we don't even see them. Although I have to say that people are so brainwashed in our world and our society that we don't see what's right in front of our noses so often, right? That the same government that is separating children is also, by the way, right now, talking about cutting Social Security and Medicare. Oh my
Whoa.
God. Oh no, that's not, there's no force involved in that. I mean, we all want that. See, first we get this great tax bill, and now it's coming out. They want to cut our Social Security and our Medicare. But, I mean, shit, if you're poor, who cares what you think? Because you have no power in society. So you can't do anything against that resistance. So as far as covert force is concerned, you can be definitely undermining, and some of the examples of force I was talking about before are actually covert. Like, I am psychologically making you scared of saying anything. While my wife just doesn't have any opinions. That's why we never hear them, right? It's not that I'm shutting her up. No, oh no. And my children are just automatically obedient because they were born that way. They have the obedience gene. So there is many covert forms of force, like the social force, that make it even harder to notice that you're like, you can't resist, and especially love. Love is a very dangerous thing. That's the wrong chord. Dangerous thing. Anyway, there you go. Because
Now, in the title of the show, why do you feel that America has adopted force over connection, or why do you ask that question?
why do I ask that question? Well, it's a good point. Why am I asking it when I already know the answer, and so do you, right? I mean, really, what evidence do we need? We have a president who loves dictators. Putin, Kim Jong-un, whatever. These are the heroes of 2018, not Abraham Lincoln, who, cared about humanity and maybe thought it would be a good idea to perhaps consider freeing the slaves, or, Harriet Tubman, who helped slaves to escape, or people who have stood up against power, who have fought for freedom, civil rights, women's rights, LGBT rights. No. Our heroes are becoming dictators. And it's very, very interesting, because the question that I'm saying is, it's very easy to say, he is such a And she is such a liar and a bully. And, you know, we do have a bully in the White House, and he's proud of it. He goes around saying, I bullied everybody. Whoopee! Good for me. I am a bully. I am bullying our allies, right? Because we couldn't possibly, and I'm going to talk about this in a few minutes, we couldn't possibly collaborate with our allies. No, we have to force them to do what we think. So this is force, right?
Yeah.
Right? Force.
Yeah.
And
Trade wars, for example.
trade wars. Oh, it's getting better and better every day, right? But why did we elect them? Why do we keep them? Why do we keep growing this power, you know, this white nationalists with the big arms? They're supposed to have that big, you know, swastikas or something that look tough. You know, we're all tough. Everybody's a mashed potato underneath the facade of toughness, by the way. I don't believe that there is such a thing as a tough guy. I mean, you know, come on, you know. But anyway, you know, you were all babbling babies at one point. Don't even give me that bull. But anyway, so there's the obvious, which is people feel powerless, but then, you know, these so-called tough guys engender fear in everybody. Oh my God, look, those migrants are coming across the border. We have to stop them. The vermin, they're going to take over. So let's make as much fear as possible, and then that will justify our use of force, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very obvious. And so what's happening, of course, is that all of our natural insecurity is being exacerbated, which means made more, for those of you who aren't familiar with that word.
Amped up.
Amped up. We're amping up. You know, the fear factor. And so there it is. And when we do that, then people will go against their own better nature. Oh, all these Christians who have not condemned the separation of children, and oh my God, because Paul said that you should obey the government, right? Like obey Adolf Hitler, obey the Holy Roman Empire, obey the government. Don't ever stand up for the poor or the weak. Don't do that. Don't even stand up for yourself. So, yes, we are being brainwashed into thinking that that's power. You know, that force is really power.
Yeah.
We think it works. And that is really the question, is does force work? Right?
Does it?
Well, it worked when we picked up the baby, right?
Yeah.
That worked. But if we spend our lives forcing people, it does not work. See, force is to be used like a little bit of chili pepper or something when it's called for. But the rest of the time, all force does is make people, animals, just about anything, angry, resentful, and then we have to use more force to keep them down. Oh yes, so we're going to enslave people, right? Women and children, sexual slavery. I mean, there's so many forms of slavery, right? We're going to enslave them, and we're going to beat them down, and then they're going to be resentful, and so then we're going to be scared of them, because after all, they might come and get us in the middle of the night. After all, you know, we're surrounded on the plantation.
Remember the Bastille.
Absolutely. That's right. The working class. So we have to use more force to keep them down, so they can get more resentful, right? So ultimately, we become prisoners of the force that we are using to oppress other people, right? Because we have to do more and more and more of that and keep them down. And you know, we're scared. We're rich and everybody else is poor. And we have to put up fences and gates and have guard dogs so that they can't get in and get our stuff. You know, see what I'm saying? This is because we haven't made sure that everybody had what they needed, right?
So it doesn't sound like force works very well.
It does not work. It does not work.
Breeds resentment.
It does.
Yeah, anger, all the rest. So what's the alternative to force?
Well, believe it or not, connection, love, common sense. I mean, collaboration. Now, you say, well, how are the slaves going to collaborate with us? We're going to talk to those slaves, and we don't want to use force anymore. We're not going to whip people. We're not going to starve people. We're not going to keep people under financial duress, which is more of the experiences that we have. We're not going to do that. We are just going to collaborate. Well, come on, guys. No slave is going to like it. You can't collaborate with people that you're oppressing. I mean, it's a limit.
They're going to want a better life.
Well, exactly. I mean, you can buy them off. Oh, yes, you can definitely buy them off. That's the only way to collaborate with the oppressed, is to get this guy and say, okay, I'm going to separate you from all the other oppressees, and I'm going to give you a little extra so that you can force everybody else to listen to me. And then I don't have to do it anymore. You're the one who can whip them. Right?
Yeah.
See, but honest to God, that does not work. So what we have to do is change the conditions that create the need for force, right?
Yeah.
For example, we have these families coming over our sacred borders. Now, we have to use force. We have to rip those children from their parents so that the parents will realize the force of the law and of the Donald and of the Jeff Sessions and all these good Christians, right? Ha ha. Okay, so what about trying to figure out why people are coming across the border to start with?
What a concept.
Oh my God, use a little common sense. So, what do? We say, well, what is going on? Yeah, one of the things that is going on, for example, could be our drug use. Because our drug use has created a lot of instability in many countries, gangs and
violence.
Cartels and a tremendous amount of violence, right?
Yeah.
So that's something we actually could do something about.
Yeah, a lot of those countries are unsafe. And
That's right.
People flee those countries to come here for
But
safety.
Because we have the power, we don't even have to look at ourselves, right? No, we just have to look at them and say, what's the matter with them? Why are they fleeing all that violence? It doesn't have anything to do with us. So that's one thing. We could be working towards a world where there's more economic opportunity for everybody, so people don't have to leave their homelands, right? But we wouldn't want
This
to
would
do
imply
that.
that we care about other people.
Oh my
we
God.
want to have connection and good
That's right.
relationships.
Exactly. We connect to them, we see what they need, we see what we need. So instead of having a trade war, we can have trade where everybody benefits. But we can't do it at the expense of our workers, right? But everybody needs to have a decent wage. But we can't have that because our millionaires and our billionaires need to get richer and richer and richer and richer and
They
richer.
need that second and third and fourth mansion.
They do. They really do. They really need it. So while we're saying, oh yes, I'm doing a little better. I got a $5 an hour raise. Oh yes, I have a job, which means that I can go get exploited for X number of hours a day. Yes, instead of, let's use our heads and let's take a look at what it is that we really need and stop being brainwashed into fighting against other people who need the same things we do. Decent life. So, no, but we're not going to do that. We're going to use force instead of compassion, intelligence. We are not going to connect to those people. We're going to call them animals.
Oh, criminals.
Criminals. Yeah, because they're not humans like us. See, because then we might have to connect and have compassion. Oh, no, we wouldn't want to do that. So the alternative is to start thinking, looking at things, analyzing them, trying to understand things, trying to fix problems, connecting to other human beings, connecting to other species. Oh, maybe the coyotes are invading our cities because they have no place to go anymore. Is that possible? Oh, well, I think we should shoot them all. Why don't we kill everything that's not in a plastic wrap in the supermarket, which is already we've killed, right?
Right.
You know, that doesn't fit into our lifestyle. Let's try to connect to everybody and everything and try to understand and stop worshiping force, thinking that that's keeping us safe, because it ain't. And if you still believe that force keeps you safe, well, then you tell me why there's so much violence in our society when we have a gigantic prison population already.
Yeah, good point.
Collaboration, harmony. We have to stop being afraid of one another. Well, how do we do that? How do you stop being afraid? Damned if I know. But one of the best ways that we know to stop being afraid is to start relating, talking, learning about each other. You know, there are so many stories about people who started out as in the Ku Klux Klan, for example, and then started to meet Muslims or black people or Jews or Catholics. I think the Klan hates Catholics too. And they said, this is not fitting my picture. These people are not fitting my picture, right?
They're humans.
They're humans. Oh my God, they're just like me. They're just like me. They're just like
They
me.
have the same kind of feelings and needs that I do.
Exactly. Exactly. So by relating, we start understanding and we become less afraid. And when we stop being so afraid, we don't feel as much need for force because we have understanding, right?
Yeah.
And this is just as true in a personal relationship. You think what I'm talking about is only political or social, oh, forget about it. It's right between the husband and the husband, or the wife and the wife, or the husband and the wife, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You've got
And the parent and the child.
Absolutely, we've got it all right now.
Siblings.
Exactly. It's the same thing goes on. We're always thinking that we have to force a result because we don't trust each other. And sometimes the reason we don't trust each other is we've had some terrible experiences. So we have to have compassion for ourselves. But a lot of it is made up, guys. If you don't get it, we're being manipulated. You know, strong men get powerful because they know how to manipulate the rest of us into doing what they want us to do. And we can dump our own best interests because we get manipulated. You don't like that? You're saying, you're saying I'm weak, I'm getting manipulated, I'm insulted, I'm going, I'm leaving, I'm turning off this show. Well, instead of turning off the show, come to Granny's Kitchen, which is at 7:15 Pacific time tonight.
Yeah.
And when we get to Granny's Kitchen, we actually talk about how we've been impacted by the show, some of the things that Granny has brought up, and Granny Rocks will be there. Granny Rocks will be there?
Yeah, that's her.
Yes. Oh my God, she's coming to Granny's Kitchen? I can talk to her directly? Yes. This is huge, isn't it? Free for nothing. Come to Granny's Kitchen, and if you can't come, all the directions are in the post about
on
how to get to
Facebook and different social media.
The directions to get to Granny's Kitchen is about video conferencing, or you can even use the phone.
Right.
So it's right there in the post. Yeah, maybe that's what you were saying,
Yes.
that the post is in our social media. And if you can't come live, which we'd love to have you live so that we can talk and come to understand each other more, relate. Oh my God, we might relate. If you can't do that, you can always watch it later on YouTube, on the Granny Rocks TV channel.
Yes.
So whichever way, dead or alive, come visit us, and let's start to promote a world of collaboration, connection, and love. And see if you don't feel less and less need for force in your life. See you next week.
Okay,
If I don't
bye-bye.
see you on Granny's Kitchen tonight, bye-bye.